This is me. I'm Dr. Angela Wall. I'm a clinical psychologist and a school psychologist with St. Raphael Counseling. And I work with your wonderful counselor here, Sierra, who's one of our finest school counselors. We have school counselors placed in a lot of different Catholic schools all over the Archdiocese, even as far away as up in Edwards. So we're growing every year, so if you ever see any of your friends or talk to anyone, go, do you have a school counselor at your school? Because we're trying to get more counselors into the Catholic schools. So we're very blessed to have Sierra, and you guys are very blessed to have Sierra. She's fantastic. I'm gonna skip through this. These are just some goals. What I wanted to start off with was this slide. When we long for life without difficulties, remind us that oaks grow strong in contrary winds and diamonds are made under pressure. And I think an important theme for me, and a theme that parents need to be reminded of, is we don't want to keep our kids in a bubble. We want our kids to face challenges and to learn how to persevere through them and how to develop grit. So part of our role as parents is, of course, we want to protect them, but we want to allow them to develop the skills necessary so that they're not all living in your basements when they're 18, 19, 20. We want to do the best we can and get them off into the world and build strong Catholic kids who, when they go off to college, they're not the kids sitting in the safe room at the college, afraid of their shadow. They're the kids being strong and representing the Catholic faith, and people are looking at them going, oh, that kid must come from a Catholic school. Because that's how they are. They're problem solvers, they're kind, they're good souls, but they're strong. Does that make sense? It's kind of my mission. Build strong kids. So let's talk about executive functioning first. And I wanted to talk a little bit about executive functioning because that's what parents ask me about a lot. We're going to talk about some other things. But first, executive functioning is not about intelligence. A bright child can still struggle with organization, follow through, time management, task initiation, and task shifting. What is executive functioning? Executive functioning refers to a set of cognitive skills in the brain's frontal lobe that enable students to plan, focus, manage emotions, achieve goals. It enables children to turn intention into action. So, something that I hear about a lot from parents, and a lot in our clinic as well. I work with the schools, but I also work in our clinic. We have so many people calling and saying, my kid has ADHD, my kid has ADHD, their attention span's so short, they can't get their homework done, they don't know where to start. They may or may not have ADHD. Kind of the interventions are all the same. What I've noticed a lot is a lot of our kids now that spend time on screens, and even if they don't, it's sort of our culture now, their attention spans are becoming shorter and shorter just because of the swiping and all of the extra everything that's going on in the world. Kids need a lot more to maintain focus. A lot of times teachers tell me, I feel like I have to compete with TikTok in my lessons to keep kids engaged because kids expect so much. They're expecting so much like visual feedback. So what that presents as in the classroom and at home is disorganized kids unable to sit there for the amount of time necessary to complete their tasks. And whether that's an academic task like homework, math homework, or it could be a task like, could you please go fold the laundry? I have 7 other children in the house. Could you please, help me out with this? So I'm seeing a lot of it lately where kids appear disorganized, they seem to have short attention spans. And like I said, we do have kids who do have neurological differences that we diagnose with ADHD, but there's a lot of just executive functioning problems going on. Does that ring true to anyone? So again, when you think about what is executive functioning, it's the ability to turn intention into action. Sounds more simple than it actually is. So I like to think of it as the air traffic controller of your brain. And I was recently on an airplane and the air traffic controllers were very, this way, this way. Kids with executive functioning problems, this is what their brain is telling them to do. They don't know which way they're going. They might start off going this way and then all of a sudden they go this way. So some examples of executive functioning skills. When I'm evaluating a child, if their parents come in like to our clinic and say, I think my child has ADHD or executive functioning difficulties, what we're looking at are these different areas. So number one is working memory, which is more than just remembering something. It's actually holding information in mind and then using it at a later time. So regular short-term memory might be, I give you a phone number and you can remember the numbers and give it back. But working memory is, please go fold the laundry and put it at the top of the stairs and then come back down and make sure you shut the dryer so your little sister doesn't climb into it. Sorry, I'm using you for examples because I'm mesmerized with the 7 girls. But that, and actually going up, putting the laundry up there, coming down, shutting the dryer, that's working memory. It might only be a few things, but it's the ability to remember it and then act on it. It's not just repeating it back. A lot of kids really get, struggle with that. Inhibition is stopping impulses. So a lot of times kids with executive functioning, they also have problems just managing their impulses. They might really want to be doing their math homework, but all of a sudden, you know, a light bulb goes off and they go and get a snack with all the good intentions of coming back and finishing their math, but then something else happens and off they go. So the impulse to go get a snack, they don't have the skills to say, let's finish this and then go get a snack. They're just impulsive. It can also appear as kind of naughty behavior too. You know, pinching your sister at church or something. I don't mean super naughty behaviors, but just impulsive stuff that, you know, they're trying to line up in the hallway and a kid bumps into them and instead of just letting it go, they might, you know, kick back at them. That's inhibition, that's impulse control. Cognitive flexibility is just your ability to adjust to change. A lot of kids today with executive functioning issues, they have trouble, you disrupt their routine and they're kind of a mess. I mean, and it can look like not doing well with a substitute teacher, or we need to leave early for school today because I have to stop and pick up cupcakes for the class, and that throws them off, just getting up early or changing a routine. So cognitive flexibility is your ability to just kind of change gears midstream, and it's a skill. Planning and organization, breaking tasks into steps. We as adults think, well, you've got a big project due in 3 weeks, and she's given you 3 weeks to do it. Why don't you do a little today, make your outline, and then you do a little on the weekend, and you know, we as adults can break things up into steps. A lot of kids have zero ability to do that. Just wouldn't even know where to start with a big project. Task initiation, just getting started. I hear a lot from parents about, I just can't get them to start. You know, they just, if I could just get them to start, then we could do a little at a time. Yeah.
Being the parent that my child got the ADHD from, there's an identification there. What I've run across that I thought was very helpful was that it's like, for the ADHD mind, there is now, right now, and not right now.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so hard to get those tasks initiated. It's why it's so hard to break those things into parts, is because it's just not right now.
Yeah. Thank you for that. That's a great example. A lot of people think it's, you know, the kids, they've got their foot on the gas all the time, and they need to put their foot on the brake. It's not so much that, it's like just letting your foot off the gas a little bit sometimes is a better thing to focus on with kids with ADHD. Just slowing them down a little bit rather than teaching them to brake. Emotional regulation, managing frustration, self-monitoring, reflecting on behavior. One of the best things that we can do as parents and in schools is teach kids how to look at their own behavior. Like, what went well, what did you do? You finished this project, how did you do it? And have them reflect on the skills that they do have, what was hard, how long did it take you, were you happy with that? Did you want to, next time, do you want to try to do it more quickly, or do you want to try to go into more detail? Talking to them about their process is a tremendous gift. So, how does executive functioning struggles show up in the home? My child knows what to do but doesn't do it. Homework takes forever. Homework, sometimes it has to do with just task initiation, getting started. A weak working memory. Where did I know I had my backpack when I left the car, but where is it now, you know? Perfectionism is something that a lot of times kids who have trouble turning in their homework, believe it or not, are perfectionists, and they would rather get in trouble for being forgetful and not turning in their homework than making a lot of mistakes on their homework. I have a little girl that I'm working with right now in the clinic, and her assignment for this week is, I want you to bring me a scored test or a scored piece of homework that has mistakes on it. That's complete, but I want to see the mistakes. I want to see you turn in something with a whole bunch of mistakes, to just like give them permission, because teachers don't know how to help you if they can't see what you're struggling with. But a lot of these executive functioning kids, they lose their homework because, like I said, they'd rather be thought of as forgetful than stupid. Mornings are chaotic. Anyone here? Chaotic mornings. Executive functioning skills for mornings are sequencing, time awareness, independence. A lot of times these kids have no concept of time whatsoever. And I think part of it has to do with this is just, I don't have research documentation, I just speculate. I'm looking at that clock right now behind me, and it's your old-fashioned clock. And we have so many kids now that don't know how to read an old-fashioned clock. And that gives you more of a visual representation of how much time you have left than like a digital watch that kids are so used to now. It's a whole different part of your brain that looks at numbers and conceptualizes, okay, my watch says 7:15, which means I only have 45 minutes left in this. But if I have a visual representation like that, it opens up a whole different part of my brain that sometimes kids with executive functioning problems really respond to. So don't be intimidated to get old-fashioned clocks. I'm a big fan. So some developmental expectations for K through 8 kids, kindergarten to 2nd grade. Kids are gonna need lots of external support. So I put this in there just so you can kind of look, I know everybody's thinking about their own kids, so that you can kind of look and see if what's the expectation is kind of what you're seeing at home. So K through 2, kids need lots of external support for these executive functioning tasks, whether they're household tasks, academic tasks. They need visuals, they need routines, reminders, and co-regulation, which means they need to watch you staying calm while they're running around the house madly looking for their backpack. They need you to be calm and be a role model. And they also need to be watching you to see how you organize yourself. So if your life is a chaotic mess, good news, bad news, no judgment, but your kids are gonna struggle with that as well. So a lot of times adults with ADHD, they develop really good coping skills, and they develop ways to organize themselves, and that's great for kids to watch. You know, I love it when parents talk to kids about, here's how I solved this problem. You know how I remember to shut the dryer before I, put away the laundry? I leave myself a little sticky on it, or whatever techniques that you use. It's all about teaching. I like to remind people that the word discipline comes from disciples, which means learners and teaching. So discipline is all about teaching. there may be some consequences in there, which I'm not opposed to, but mostly it's about doing a better job of teaching your kids so you run into fewer problems. Grades 3 through 5, skills begin developing but are inconsistent, so more independence, they still need structure, emotional frustration increases. The workload in 3rd grade goes way up from 2nd grade. For all of you parents who have older kids, you probably know this, but the difference between 2nd and 3rd grade is huge. 2nd grade, you're still kind of learning, you know, the fundamentals. 3rd grade, you're being asked to use what you've learned. So there's a whole lot more writing requirements. You're taking it to a totally different level. So a lot of times that's when we see kids start to struggle with their executive functioning, or kids that might have ADHD really have a problem when they go into 3rd grade. Emotional frustration increases. There's a big jump again in middle school, grades 6 through 8, because they'll start having multiple teachers, long-term assignments, a heavier workload, and increased social emotional stress. So once again, that's another huge jump between like 5th and 6th grade, because 6th through 8th, they're gonna be having these long-term projects, and they get to go through adolescence, which is a whole other layer of confusion and drama to add to their executive functioning issues. What I would say is, a lot of times if you're concerned about your kid, the earlier the better. If you feel like you need some outside intervention, the child needs any additional supports. If you've really been trying, and they're starting to get towards the end of 2nd grade, and they're still really struggling academically, that's the time to really push for some outside supports and some outside help, because it's not gonna get better. They're gonna make the jump to 3rd grade, and that's when in the schools, and I don't know if you probably see this too, kids who are smart and have executive functioning problems, or ADHD, or maybe even dyslexia, they've been able to kind of fake it for up until the end of 2nd grade, but when they get to 3rd grade, they start noticing what's going on with me, what's wrong with me, what's happening. And that's when we start seeing behavior problems too. So if you have concerns, and you can kind of reach out and get some support before 3rd grade, before just executive functioning problems turns into behavior problems, that's a smart idea. What we don't want is kids who just have executive functioning problems or ADHD to somehow think that they're not smart. Because there's tons of people with ADHD, there's tons of people with dyslexia that are brilliant. They are just wired for a different kind of world, you know, and they're trying to fit into a world that functions in a certain way, and their brains are doing all kinds of brilliant, crazy, cool things, and we're expecting them to sit in their seats and pay attention. So, but I would say between 2nd and 3rd grade is an important developmental level. So some practical strategies parents can use tonight. Routines. Children thrive when routines are predictable. Routine. I know when you have kids, things change, but a lot of times we'll be meeting with parents at school, and the parents will say, you're telling me that my child behaves this well at school? You should see them at home, they're a nightmare. A lot of times kids really do well in school. Why? Because it's very routine. Everything's the same, the consequences, they know what's expected of them, they know what the rewards are, they know what the consequences are, and that routine gives kids such a sense of safety and security. It's like a warm blanket that they're able to focus and do their work. So even if you're a little bit of a disorganized parent, if you do one thing and you can try to implement a better routine in your house, you will be thankful you did. So like a morning routine chart: wake up, get dressed, eat breakfast, pack backpack, shoes, and out the door. Some kids do well with lists, like written lists that you can put on the bathroom mirror and they can check off, or you can have a little whiteboard, or you can even have a chart where they put a sticker when they're finished with things. Other kids do better with visuals, with pictures, like I have a lot of parents with kids with ADHD who will take a photograph of what a bedroom looks like when it's clean. And they put it in the bedroom, like on the back of the door. Because kids do better with that than they do with a list of things, like when you say, go clean your room. Remember, they can't, their working memory sometimes doesn't work, their sequencing doesn't work, they get distracted. But if there's a picture there, a lot of kids respond really well to that. And we try that in school sometimes too, like what does your desk look like when you're ready to learn? And it shows one piece of paper, one pencil, you know, the backpack on the back of the, you know, whatever, what it's supposed to look like. And again, evening routine, homework, pack for tomorrow, wind down, prayer, bedtime. Organization. Executive functioning skills develop slowly, so we support them with tools, and tools that help, once again, our visual schedules, just like I said. If your kid is having trouble getting ready, getting to the car in time to go to school in the morning, sometimes having visual pictures of exactly what they're supposed to be doing in the bathroom, and you can take a photograph and just, you know, cut out the pictures, and these are your steps. It can be really helpful. And they can just touch it when they're done, touch it when they're done, touch it when they're done, and then they go downstairs. And it keeps them on track. Teachers use visual schedules a lot. Checklists, again, some kids do better with checklists. You kind of have to experiment. Color-coded folders for when they're a little older, when you're trying to get them to organize all their work. Visuals, colors help. You know, if you're at Target and you're buying school supplies and the teacher says, you know, they need four folders, definitely if your kid has executive functioning problems, get them in different colors. Because they'll start, once again, the part of their brain tunes into the visual, and they'll know that yellow is social studies, they'll know that red is math. You know, it's just helpful. Family calendars are super important. Don't expect the brain to hold what the environment can support. So once again, it's just a tool. It's just the organization and the routine is just a tool. If you went into your kid's classroom and they had different classes at different times every day, every kid in the building would be a mess, you know? So as much as you can stick to a general routine, the better. Chunking tasks, breaking tasks into smaller steps. So instead of clean your room, you could try put your clothes in the hamper, put books on shelf, make bed. And same thing with homework chunking. Work in short bursts, 10 to 15 minutes of work and a 3 to 5 minute break. And if you want to set a timer, I love the visual timers that kids can see, as long as they're not ticking. You don't want the ticking. Ticking is distracting, but if you can get like a silent timer where they actually see visually how much time they have left, sometimes it's super helpful for kids. Teaching time management visually. Kids don't feel time the same way adults do. They just haven't had as much time on the planet to experience it. You know, they're just getting used to it. So helpful supports are, once again, timers, countdown warnings, visual clocks, first then language. For example, first math, then snack. And this is a good little example of, Sierra's heard me say this a million times before, but I call it my Dr. Wall's 90% rule. That anything you want to say to your child that's important, cut out 90% of it. Just focus on like this. First math, then snack. If your child is having executive functioning problems, anything, the last thing they need is a whole bunch of words. Well, you know, you really need to do your math, because remember last week when you didn't do your math and you got in trouble and then you had to miss recess? You don't want to go there. It's math, then snack. Cut out everything else. And it does work with spouses as well. If there's something important to say, get rid of the rest of it and just go straight to it, because people lose interest quickly. So supporting emotional regulation. Executive functioning includes emotional control. Kids, once again, I believe, as a psychologist, what I see, kids are way overstimulated. There's way too much going on in their visual world, and especially kids with some executive functioning skills, ADHD, get out of control really easily. So helping them and modeling to them calm down methods and self-regulation is super important. Breathing, we will all, I can't tell you how much I read now on, it's so silly because breathing is the most elemental, basic thing that we do. They're doing so much research now on the importance of breathing and slowing down your breathing and taking deep breaths through your nose and out through your mouth. When you do take a deep breath, I used to think that it was just kind of distract yourself from how nervous you were or how wound up you were. But what it actually does when you take a really deep breath and you flood your brain with oxygen, it sends a physical sign and an actual physiological message to your brain that everything's okay. Because when you're running away from a saber-toothed tiger back in the caveman days, you're breathing like this. So if you're breathing deeply and in a calm way, it sends a signal to your brain that everything's okay, and the rest of your body calms down. So I even have kids do this in my office. I have them do it, before they go to bed at night. I have moms do this sometimes when they're dealing with difficult kids, teachers. You're breathing really deeply in through your nose, and you're blowing it slowly out through your mouth. And with my kids, I have them visualize just bringing in beautiful golden light into your brain, and then blowing out anything that you don't want. All your bad thoughts and worries, you're blowing them out. And it's good practice for the whole family to do. You can practice in the car, you can practice whenever you want, but it's definitely a practice. It's not something that you can teach a kid when they're in the middle of a panic attack to slow down their breathing. You should practice ahead of time, like, so I'll just breathe a little bit. Movement breaks for kids with ADHD, as long as they're timed and structured. You can't just say, go out and play, come back, in a little bit. It's gotta be, if they're in the middle of a task and you wanna give them a break in the middle of a big, long homework assignment, you have to say, let's set your timer on your watch, or I'm gonna set the timer on the desk, or I want you to go outside and you're gonna count to 90 and run around as much as you can while you're counting, and then come back in, structure it for them. But movement breaks are important. Sensory tools, you don't like things that are too distracting, but a lot of times, kids do like to fidget with things while they're thinking. And, there's all kinds of things that don't make noise, like putty and things that they can have in their hands that sometimes kids is very helpful while they're working. Teachers have a whole different point of view because sometimes they can be distracting, or they'll ball it up and hit somebody across the room or whatever. You can have a prayer corner instead of a timeout corner. It's time for you to go to your prayer corner, say some prayers. Just a quiet reset space sometimes is important. Another thing I like to teach kids, especially our little Catholic kids, is I always teach them to do when they're feeling really out of control and they're doing their breathing. I teach them to do like an angel hug and to put their hands on their chest like this, like an angel wings, and to visualize their guardian angel and to do their breathing, and their guardian angel is going to help them calm down, because there's a lot of research just about putting your hands here and how it kind of grounds you. So sometimes, especially with little ones, I'll say, let's do your angel hug. You need your angel hug now. And then I have them just picture their guardian angel. And then they do their breathing, and that's all based in science. The guardian angel part is based in me, but the breathing with your hands there is all science. Growth mindset, using encouragement over correction. So instead of shaming, you forgot again, how many times do I have to tell you? You can try what system could help you remember better tomorrow. So you're just focusing on, yes, you're disorganized, today, but I have confidence in you. We're gonna work through this. You're gonna develop some skills. It's gonna be great. I used to be disorganized when I was a kid, and now I can manage a lot of things. You're gonna be okay. Kids take a lot of their energy, obviously, and their self-esteem from how their parents respond to things. And the way you respond to disorganization and struggles is key. And the more you can say, you know what? You're not doing great today, but I have confidence in you. You can do this. The more it's tempting as parents, I mean, to say, you forgot again, you forgot your homework again, I got another email from your teacher again. There's a place for consequences, and I'm all for that, but when it comes to just nagging kids, if we can restructure it to a more supportive, how are we gonna do this better tomorrow? It's always better. Just think about your job or whatever. I mean, you want a boss that isn't nagging you all the time. You want a boss that's saying, this was hard for you today, what can we do to work on it so that it's not as hard tomorrow? Like, you want a supportive person in your life that's not gonna make you feel horrible about yourself. So growth mindset language, you're learning this skill, mistakes help us grow, or let's try a new strategy. And then the older they are, the more I put it back on them. How are you gonna solve this problem? Once again, remember when I started off, we don't want to raise kids who are using the safety room at college to calm down. We want kids who are gonna be able to solve their own problems. And that starts when they're little, and as they get older, how do you wanna solve it? Your teacher called me and said that you forgot your homework. Before we start working on this together, I want you to tell me how you think you could fix this. And bounce the ball back into their court, so to speak. How do you want to fix it? Don't solve their problems. Have confidence that they're going to be able to come up with some things themselves. Teaching grit and resilience. Teaching responsibility with support, not shame. We're forming children in virtue. Responsibility, perseverance, self-control, and humility are all different versions of resilience and grit. And the one way to really undermine your kids' healthy emotional development is to use shame with them, that there's something wrong with them. Why is this so hard for you and not for your brother? What's going on with you? We really have to have a voice in our head that sort of filters things before we say it out loud. Is this constructive and supportive, or is this shaming them? Because if your kid truly does have a disability or an executive functioning difficulty or ADHD, it probably came from us, or one of us, one of the parents, because typically it's inherited. So resilience is the ability to handle life's ups and downs. It's a skill that, you start forming it when they're a kid, and they should be grateful to you for the rest of their life. Because once again, the oak tree example at the beginning when we started, we don't want to bubble wrap our kids. We want them to be able to face adversity and come back and say, you know what, I can solve problems. I'm gonna be able to solve this and come back stronger. So the different pieces of resilience: optimism, focusing on strengths. Emotionally healthy kids are optimistic. Even if something bad happens, they're like, well, okay, I'll get after it tomorrow. I'm gonna work on it, things are gonna get better. Some of the kids I worry about the most are the kids that are so pessimistic and they have no confidence and no faith in themselves. So their attitude to life is a focus on action, and I can do this. I can do this. Emotional awareness, key to good communication. I think it's important as parents, if we're talking about resilience, but just good general emotional health in your kids really starts with establishing a relationship with them. And that seems ridiculous to say out loud, but we are all so busy that kids tell me sometimes their parents don't look at them all day. Their parents are looking at the phone, they're driving, they're doing this, they're doing that. And kids today have so little just eye contact from their parents. Individual, I'm looking at you, and you're different than that one. And you're not any better or any worse. I'm seeing you as a person. That's what's gonna develop the emotional awareness and the healthiness in your kid, is that you see them. You don't expect them to be the #1 scorer on the soccer team, or the lead dancer, or the best kid in school. You value them like God values us, just for who they are. And that starts with just looking at them and looking them in the eyes. And I like saying their name too. Use their name. And even if it's just like I said, we're all busy, but if everybody can just take a little bit of time just to focus on them, it's such a special feeling to kids. I have kids that I work with that sometimes act out and misbehave just to get the attention from their parents. We'll have sometimes a parent meeting at school where parents will come in, and you'd think, when I was a kid, I would be mortified if my parents had to come to school. But some of these kids are like, I'm special, today I'm special, even though not in a good way. So just learning that they have just value, just being them, noticing them, putting your hand on their shoulder while they're eating breakfast, just in passing, letting them know that you see them is everything as far as strengthening their sense of who they are. You can talk about, like I said, Dr. Wall's 90% rule. You can talk and talk and talk and tell them how great they are. When they'll feel good when you're looking at them and when you're valuing them. Is everybody with me on that? So control of self, your response to circumstances, and organizational ability. So what we want is for them to develop a sense of, the world isn't just happening to me. I make things happen. I control the kind of day I'm gonna have. I can manage what kind of day I'm gonna have. I can manage whether I'm gonna have a good day at school. The world, I'm just not going out every morning and getting bombarded with things. I'm in control of my life. I may not be totally in control, but I can certainly make good choices to make sure that I have a good day at school, or a good day at camp, or a good day wherever, or a good morning at church. Social support, network of family and friends is key to resilience. Once again, they're doing more and more research just on the importance of kids having a sense of belonging and having friends and being part of a community. We went through this whole COVID nightmare where everybody went from looking out at the world to looking down, at screens, and to isolating themselves. And we have such an epidemic with our teenagers and our college kids of loneliness and isolation. And so instilling in your kids when they're still a younger age, of just the importance of, you might not be an extrovert, you may not love being the center of the attention, but it's important to have a community. And it's important to be out doing something. It's important to be talking to people. It's important to develop social skills, to be able to look an adult, in the eyes and shake their hand and say their name. To engage with the world. These are basic social skills that a lot of our kids are totally missing. So once again, emphasizing in your family, one of our family values is we value community. It's important for us to go to church on Sunday, not just because we have to, but because it's important for us to be sitting with other people and understanding what our community is. A lot of homeschool kids that, God bless people for homeschooling their kids, because I know exactly why they do it, but they struggle with isolation and depression when they're not in a setting where they're allowed to play and interact with people. Sense of humor, they can laugh at life's frustrations. And as parents, you better be laughing at life's frustrations, because once again, most of what we teach our kids, they're just watching us. It's very little of what's coming out of our mouths. It's they're watching how we deal with life's ups and downs and how we can laugh at ourselves when we make a stupid mistake. Really emotionally healthy people usually have a really good sense of humor. Doesn't mean that they tell jokes and they crack other people up, but they appreciate humor and they laugh at things and they have a sense of looking at the world with a lightness, and that goes along with the optimism. Self-belief, confident, and have high self-esteem. And high self-esteem is not a negative thing, and it doesn't mean that they're narcissistic or selfish. It means that they believe that they have a purpose here on earth and that God put them here for a reason. And they're purposeful. And they believe that, you know, I am here to do something. I don't know what it is yet because I'm only 9 or whatever, but I know that I'm here for a reason. That's good self-esteem. And good self-esteem is, once again, not, I think, you know, St. Augustine was big on humility, and so was our newest St. Carlos, who said, humility is not looking at yourself as less, it's looking less at yourself. So these kids with healthy self-confidence aren't always thinking about themselves. They think they don't think less of themselves, they just don't think about themselves. They're busy doing other things and being a part of the community and helping people. So you can have really strong self-esteem, and it doesn't mean being selfish. Does that make sense? Not thinking less of yourself, but thinking about yourself less. And when you're depressed and when you're down and when you have a lot of anxiety, you'll notice with yourself or your friends or your kids, spend a lot of time thinking about themselves and thinking about how sad they are, how worried they are, how anxious they are. And if we can teach them to start looking out at the world instead of constantly looking at themselves, it's just a healthy practice. Ability to problem solve, willing to adapt and be flexible, and that also includes when they learn to problem solve, learning that they're going to make mistakes, and that's fine, and bouncing back from it, because if you're not making mistakes, you're not learning anything. So having a family value that we make mistakes here all the time, we just correct them, and we apologize, and we try to do a better job, but making mistakes is part of, that's what we do in this family. So again, just some other ways to build resilient learners. Practice your coping strategies, practice your breathing. They have the little kid there doing this, but you know, I'm big into the angel hug, bringing it in. Learn and grow from failures together. Teach and practice positive self-talk. And that's something that you can talk with your kids about, that everybody has, voices in their head, but everybody has a voice in their head that's constantly talking to them. And what I tell kids is, you can have a cheerleader over here and a critic over here. It's like a good positive coach and an angry coach who's constantly bashing you. And you need to start listening to the positive, supportive coach that says, yeah, you messed up, but what are you gonna do now? That's your self-talk, that's positive self-talk. If you got the critic always in your ear saying, you're stupid, you're dumb, you lost your backpack again, you forgot your homework, it's not helpful, it's a waste of energy. And it's shaming, and it's just disrespects their humanity. So you want them to pay attention to their positive coach on this shoulder. And whether that's, you can frame it like little kids respond really well to, like, you have a guardian angel that you can talk to all day long. You can talk to God, you can talk to Jesus if you're confused, and stop in the middle of your day and say, wait a second, what am I supposed to do? I mean, teach them some strategies, and that's all part of self-talk too. Teach and encourage self-compassion, being kind to yourself and not being too hard on yourself. And that doesn't mean allowing them to do whatever they want. That just means that you made a mistake, maybe here's your consequence. You know, I told you that you're not having donuts after Mass if you didn't get in the car on time. That's a consequence, but we're not gonna shame them about it. We're just gonna give them a consequence and roll on with our day. Practice gratitude and gain some perspective. Big thing now that they're doing all kinds of research on, besides the breathing, is they call it vitamin G, and that's gratitude. And practicing gratitude every day for what you have. Developing SMART goals and work on them. SMART goals are like measurable goals. Like you can help them, if you have a particularly disorganized or a kid with ADHD, help them set a goal. Maybe if you have a family meeting on Sunday nights, what are you gonna work on this week? I am gonna work on getting my homework finished by 5 so that I have some time to play before dinner. And that's a SMART goal because it's measurable. You can give them stars. I have a lot of families that use marble jars, that whenever they achieve like their goal for the day, that they get to put another marble in the jar and they can watch the marbles fill up, and when the jar gets full, they earn something great, you know, even if it's just extra time with their mom or an extra story at night. Use confidence building strategies, and once again, it's not about what you're saying to them, and it's not about their academic achievements or their sports achievements. Confidence building comes from seeing the love in their parents' eyes. And that I will love you no matter what. You're still not getting donuts after church, but that's not who you are. That behavior that you just had, that's not what you're about, and you know it and I know it. And I believe in you. Encourage kids to solve problems on their own. That's huge. Once again, just picture bouncing them. If they say, Mom, you know, so-and-so did this, so-and-so did that. Do you know how many parents I have that will actively call another student or text another child to try to solve their kids' problems in middle school? It happens all the time. It's shocking to me. Like, what are you doing calling your kid's friend? Well, they were disrespectful to my child. I needed to call them. I'm like, no, you didn't. Your child needs to learn how to handle that problem on their own. It's not doing a service to your child to be solving all their problems, to be marching into school when they're getting things wrong. You certainly can advocate for your child, and you should, but you should always give them the opportunity to solve the problem themselves first. They surprise us, and it's really nice when they figure it out and they come up with a solution. Sometimes they might need a little nudge, but kids surprise me all the time at how resourceful they are. When they say, I don't know how to solve it. Well, I'm gonna give you a couple minutes to try to figure it out, and give them a little time. Teach and model flexible thinking skills. You know, if you have a change in your schedule, talk to them about it. You know, I was at work today, and you're not gonna believe what happened. All of a sudden, you know, we had to leave the building because of something that was going on next door, and I had to leave my desk, and all of my work was lost when I came back. And I was so frustrated, but I did some deep breathing, and I thought, okay, how am I gonna get back on track? And so I did this and this and this, and just model that for them. Or even if you're working around the house, you can say out loud, how am I gonna get everything done and get dinner ready? Okay, here's my plan. I mean, say it out loud. Once again, we're not talking their ear off. You're saying, I'm gonna get everything out that I need from the refrigerator. I'm gonna line everything up. I'm gonna get some help cooking, and I'm gonna get started right now. Just real simple kinds of things. Reframe struggles as opportunities to grow. And they are opportunities to grow. Struggles are opportunities to grow throughout our whole life. If you go into your doctor and your doctor does some blood work and says, you know, you need to change your diet if you want to live for a while. I mean, that's a struggle, and that's something you don't want to hear, but it motivates you to make a change. So it happens throughout our whole life. A struggle will help us reshape our behavior in a better direction. And it's good that they learn that as a little kid when they're coming home from first grade and they've got a whole bunch of things wrong. Well, okay, this shows us what we need to work on. These red marks right here tell us exactly what we need to work on. And check in with emotions on a regular basis. If you ask your child, how are you feeling? And they say, fine. Fine is not a feeling. Give me a better word. Give me a, and you can model it for them and help them develop kind of their feelings vocabulary. And once again, it works with spouses too. You ask them, how was your day? And they say, fine. That's not, I don't want to hear fine, I want to hear more, Or you can say, tell me about your day. Give me something specific that was joyful in your day. Give me something specific that you saw today outside that was beautiful. Even if it's a terrible day, what did you see that was beautiful today? Go deep, even with your little ones. This develops like a feeling word vocabulary and a sense that it's okay to talk about your feelings. Because if you talk about their feelings when they're doing well, they're going to be more likely to be able to talk to you when things get difficult. And the one thing you want, does anybody here have teenagers? You want your kids to keep talking to you. That should be your goal. Good or bad. The thing that I hear a lot when kids come into my office is, I can't tell my mom this, she'll freak out. But if you keep talking to them and you let them know that you're open to hearing the good, the bad, the ugly, whatever, and you're gonna work through it with a growth mindset and a positive attitude, and we're gonna figure this out, or rather you're gonna figure this out, but you want your kids to keep talking to you. And so use all the feeling language. Tell me about your day. Don't say it was bad. Use a different word. Was it scary? Were you angry? Were you afraid? Were you nervous? It wasn't just bad. Go there with them. And then just, I love, our kids have so much stuff. At least some kids do. But working on puzzles and brain teasers, and I think this is, specific just to how to learn resilience. I like seeing kids work on things that are probably way too difficult for them, even if they're just messing around. Like I have a bunch of Rubik's Cubes in my office that I actually have some kids that can do them really well. But most kids just like to, play around with them. But I love to give kids things that are really challenging. And, who knows? What I'm saying is present challenges, continuously present challenges. Put your kid in challenging situations. While you're still there, while you're still with them, while you still got them. So if they fall, if they fail, if they break their arm, they've got a parent around that's gonna help them out. But encourage them to take chances and to do difficult, scary things. So just some reminder things. Family routines, predictable Sunday preparation. I love the idea of people doing family meetings on a Sunday just to kind of plan for the week, in the spirit of creating structure. Even if your week is gonna be crazy or you're going on vacation or whatever, just sitting down, here's the plan for the week. How are you guys feeling about this? And just talking about it. And again, we just talked about this. What went well today? What can you improve for tomorrow? Teaching children to breathe and to pause. And if they don't know the right answer, just take a minute. If I ask you how you're going to solve this problem, just permission to take a minute. Just take your time and try to figure it out. In regard to executive functioning skills, you can grow them. You can develop them. This can be taught. There's plenty of things that can happen to kids in this life that we can't fix. Executive functioning skills we can teach. It's the least of our problems. ADHD, the least of our problems. Structure builds independence. What I mean by that is, like I said, kids do really well in school because they know exactly what to do. They know where to walk to get to the cafeteria, where to walk to get to the gym. So consequently, you can have a pretty young kid finding their way to the cafeteria and the gym by themselves. So structure fosters independence. Tools are not crutches, they're just scaffolding. Emotional regulation is part of executive functioning. Once again, you don't leave with anything else, look your kids in the eye. Promise me, everyone. Take the time. Notice your child's individual personality and strengths. Spend time getting to know your child beyond academics or sports, or beyond their achievements. If you only focus on their achievements and only jump for joy when they're doing something great, then they're gonna feel badly about themselves when they're not. So jump for joy when they're just being around, and just enjoy them. Enjoy them. And then faith and family life provide powerful stability. So you guys are already ahead of the game, because you're giving your kids faith, the gift of faith, which is everything.